The second part of what we are doing today is we are going to solve systems with elimination using story problems. If you take a look at number 9, we are first going to start by writing two equations to get a system, and then we are going to use elimination to solve that system. If you take a look at this first example, the sum of two numbers is 22. The difference is 6. What are the two numbers? In this problem, they do not tell you what to call the two numbers, so we are going to refer to them as x and y. If you recall from earlier this year, when you were talking about the sum, you were talking about adding. So if you are adding the two numbers, you get 22. So if we call our numbers x and y, we write down x plus y equals 22. The difference is when you subtract. So if we were talking about the difference of two numbers, we have x minus y equals 6. If you notice, they are both in standard form, and if you were to add down, if you notice in this problem, the y's will cancel. So if I add x plus x, I get 2x, y plus negative y cancels, and 22 plus 6 is 28. Once I get that equation, I can then divide by 2 and get x equal to 14. Once I get x equal to 14, I can pick one of my two equations. I'm going to choose the top, and I'm going to plug in 14 for x, and I'm going to solve for y. Once I plug in 14, and I subtract 14 from both sides, I get y equal to 8. So my two solutions are x equals 14 and y equals 8. If we take a look at the next problem, it is another story problem that deals with ordering food. If you take a look at this one, you have a drink and a sandwich for $4.50. Your friend buys a drink and 5 sandwiches for $16.50. And we must set up a system of equations to find the price for each thing. I'm going to use the letter D for drink and the letter S for sandwich. So for our first sentence, if we buy a drink and a sandwich, we pay $4.50. So the drink plus the sandwich added together is $4.50. For our second part, our friend also buys a drink, but instead of one sandwich, they buy 5 sandwiches, and they are paying $16.50. As you look at this problem, you notice that they are both again in standard form, but when I add down, my D's or S's do not cancel. However, my D's are very close to canceling because they're both positive. So in this case, if I take and multiply my top by -1, I will get a negative D minus S equals a negative 450. Now when I add down, I can get my variables to cancel. So this 1D and negative 1D will cancel each other out. 5S minus 1S is 4S, and 1650 minus 450 is 12. Once I get that, I can divide by 4, and the price of a sandwich is $3. Once I get the price of a sandwich, I can then plug it into either equation. I'm going to choose to plug it into the top. So I keep my D plus, and wherever there's an S, I replace it with 3. And that equals 450. To then solve for D, I subtract 3, and the price of a drink is $1.50. And that is how you set up a system of equations and solve them using elimination. If you flip your page, we're going to do one more story problem, which is a lot like number 11. A business with 2 locations buys some large and some small delivery vans. Location A receives 5 large vans and 2 small vans, and their total is $235,000. Location B receives 2 large vans and 3 small vans, and their total is $160,000. What is the cost of each type of van? The first thing we must do is we must determine what we are talking about. In this problem, we are trying to talk about large and small vans. So I'm going to call my large vans L and my small vans S. This first sentence says that you have 5 large vans and 2 small vans. So I'm going to make that 5L plus 2S equals $235,000. The second place location receives 2 large vans, so 2L, plus 3 small vans, 3S, for a total of $160,000. If you look at my setup, you will notice right away that it is written in standard form. However, my S's or my L's do not cancel. So if you cannot see a number to multiply by either line or both lines, you can use the shortcut way to make sure you always get it right. You take the number 2, put it there, the number 5, put it there, and we are going to try and get our L's to cancel. The problem is 2 times 5 is 10, and 5 times 2 is 10. And 2 positive 10s do not cancel. So once you have the right number, but they are both positive, you have to go back and make one of them a negative. I am choosing to make my top 2 a negative. Now when I distribute, I get a negative 10L minus 4S equals a negative 470,000. And you can either multiply those in your head or on your calculator. If you distribute the bottom, you get 10L plus 15S equals 800,000. Just make sure you take that number and distribute it to all the pieces. Now if I add down, my L's will cancel. Negative 4 plus 15 is an 11S. And negative 470,000 plus 800,000 is 330,000. Once I get that number, I can then divide by 11, and I'm going to have 30,000 small vans. Okay. Once I get that, I then must plug the 30,000 in for S into one of my 4 equations and solve for L. I'm going to choose to plug it into my top equation. So I keep my 5L. I plug 30,000 in for S. So 2 times 30,000 is 60,000 equals 235,000. Now I solve for L. So I subtract 60,000. Once I subtract 60,000, I have 5L equals 175,000. 235,000 minus 60,000 is 175,000. Then I divide by 5, and I can get my final answer of L to be 35,000 vans. And there's your solution.